and welcome to our program Where God Weeps. First the civil war that lasted for over 20 years, then the national disaster of the tsunami. The island of Sri Lanka, south of India, has had to suffer a lot. To tell us more about Sri Lanka and the situation of the Catholic Church, we are in Rome to meet with Father Jeevendra Paul, former provincial of the Oblates of St. Mary Immaculate in Sri Lanka. Welcome, Father.
Thank you very much, Pauline.
Please tell us something about yourself.
I'm Father Paul. I come from Jaffna, Sri Lanka. I've been a priest for last 23 years.
Why did you become a priest? When you're so long a priest already, maybe you still remember.
Yes, it's a good question. I've been aspiring to become a priest from my early age. In fact, I joined the seminary when I was 15 years old. I was educated in a Catholic school, which was originally started by the Oblates. And my family had been traditionally a Catholic family, had great admiration to the church and its leaders. And my desire to become a religious priest was to opt for a more difficult way of life for the sake of Jesus, and I wanted to serve the people.
But why did you choose then for the Oblates?
Because I was drawn by the type of work and the missionary endeavors they had been engaged in at the time. In our country, the Oblates wear a big cross, oblate cross, and they were very much closer to the people. And they had arrived in Sri Lanka in 1847, and so they have a long tradition and number of priests and institutions managed by them, and that's how it was an automatic choice that I made.
Can you tell us just a little bit about the Oblates? Who founded the Oblates and why did they come to Sri Lanka, to the northern part of Sri Lanka?
It was founded by a French priest, Eugene de Maisonneuve. He then became a bishop, and now he is canonized as a saint. So he is Saint Eugene de Maisonneuve, and he founded his congregation in Aix-en-Provence in Marseille, in the southern part of France. It was started after the French Revolution, and he was a lover of the poor and the abandoned, though he was born in a noble family. And he himself had gone through many crises as any young person of his age could have gone through, especially the displacement. He had to live in exile during immediately after the French Revolution. And he was requested by then one and only Bishop of Jaffna from Sri Lanka. And it is very interesting to note how the bishop had made the request to him.
How was it then?
He had in fact he was assisted by many others, given certain suggestions how to win him over. And he said there are hundreds of souls going to be destroyed, and to save them. And Sri Lanka was the first choice in Asia. And in 1847, for the missionaries from Europe to go by ship and then making a long way. And over hundreds of missionaries had followed them, and most of them were buried in Sri Lanka. So it is very amazing to see the dedication and the missionary zeal they had.
You entered the seminary already when you were 15 years old. Did you always stay in Sri Lanka? Did you do your whole way in Sri Lanka?
Yes, I did my early studies in Sri Lanka, and my priestly formation was in Sri Lanka. And I think one of the qualifications that I had to become a provincial is that I was a man of the soil. And I was ordained in 82, and from 83 onwards, the Sri Lanka faced with a civil war.
What kind of war was this? What kind of civil war?
There are two communities living in Sri Lanka, the Tamils and the Singhalese. The Tamils are the minorities and the Singhalese are the majority of the country. But it is more political in its character, and I don't know whether this is mentioned in here is worth about the whole political situation. But the fact remains is that there had been a civil war, and especially in the north and east, the Tamil-speaking people had been constantly faced with this war situation, and I myself have gone through a big experience of displacement and suffering.
Can you tell us about this experience and this suffering for yourself during the Civil War?
Actually, if I were to tell you one example of 1995, when I was the rector of the minor seminary, we had about 40 students, seminarians, and within 24 hours I had to sort of vacate and then move on to another place, not exactly, there was no place as such, to an unknown area of mostly jungle areas, and then kind of a mass displacement made the situation was very, very difficult. And I would say in that sense, all of the people in Sri Lanka, maybe both the Tamils and Singhalese, even the Singhalese who joined the army are from the village and the remote areas. So the church in Sri Lanka have been going through untold suffering. And this is where I feel my presence over there and the presence of the oblates have been very, very meaningful to us. Because the church was like an ark during the time of Noah, how that was really protecting and saving lives.
Saving lives because many of the normal people could come into the monasteries, or what is that exactly?
The church took the leadership very much, and the people trusted the church leaders, especially priests and the religious, because there was no really political leaders, and everybody was caught up and felt the helplessness. Of course, people flocked to the churches and schools, and then we used to give them protection. And more than that, most of our social work, even you see, besides our sacramental life, our ministry embraces irrespective of language or religion.
And during the Civil War, could you pray really? Because it must have been a horrible situation.
I think more people flocked to the church because of the suffering. And church was the only place of consolation, solace, and also refuge. And as a provincial, I have been, I was in fact privileged, and God blessed me with more and more support and inspiration from within and without to serve these people. And we launched into new ministries, reaching out to the poor.
Ministries during the Civil War already, or ministries that you have created after the Civil War?
Mostly after the Civil War, I would say.
And what kind of ministries are they?
It is to, besides our pastoral care, getting the people around the church, we also launch into new ministries such as psychosocial programs. We have qualified, trained counselors, priests who are qualified in counseling, and we have 3 centers in the north itself, And we used to train the lay people as counselors and reach out to those people who are grieving over very heavy loss of lives, properties, and so on. And that structure actually helped us even after, during the tsunami. It was a heavy disaster, and the whole world sort of moved towards, they were mobilized and they were very sympathetic, and lots of gifts and donations flocked, sort of flowed into the country in order to support these people. And also we have 3 children's home, and in which we have nearly 80 in one center, another home, another about 50 odd, another one about 40 odd children. And then we also take care of many children in their own homes, taking care of their physical, educational and social needs.
Now to go back on the tsunami, first was a civil war, then the tsunami.
That's exactly.
Did the people ever think, why is God abandoning us? Or why is this all happening to us, only to us?
This was the basic question, especially after the tsunami. Many people were asking, because in a particular family, wife and 3 children, or for one person to grieve over the death of 10, 12, 15 people, it was too much for them, and one question which we couldn't answer. But at the same time, because of our faith, we were able to sort of support them, give them a kind of a helping hand, and it is because of the faith that we were able to do that.
Did the people accept this kind of consolation, the faith?
Yes, of course. There were two types of donations. Like there one, when they were hungry. Maybe I can say immediately after the 2-3 days after the tsunami attack, and from the people who were living other than the coastal areas, each family was giving 2, 3, 4 food packages, but they were not eating.
Why
so
not?
It is because they were so shocked and they were really so sad about the whole thing. It was a great shock, and that food was not their immediate need. But it is not only giving things, but the people. There should be people to empathize with them, to be with them, to listen to them, and then to support them. So that is where I think I find the presence of the religious and the priests, also the lay and good people who have come forward to help these people. It's like a wounded healer, all are wounded, but then still we can heal each other.
But Sri Lanka, for the largest part, is a Buddhist country. How do you live together as Catholics and Buddhists?
We have Buddhists. See now, the majority of the people are Singhalese and minorities are Tamils. But all the Buddhists are Singhalese and all the Hindus are Tamils. So only the Christians are both the Singhalese and the Tamils. So this is the advantage of being a Christian. Though we are a minority in the south among the Buddhists and minority among the Hindus in the north, still the church has an international backing, international support, and we are recognized, number one. And then there have been traditionally schools and hospitals and lots of these social activities have been initiated by the church, and then people recognize that human character, of course that is the witnessing character of the Christian church. Even though there are people from both from the Buddhists and the Hindus, certain fundamentalists who are against sort of conversion, and they react and there are certain areas who are sort of not very cordial to us. We as Oblates have been conducting for a number of years the children program, which is called the Leadership Children Program. That is a propagation of faith, the Holy Childhood. The Holy Childhood have been sort of translated into the context of Sri Lanka, and we used to have children of all religions. And those areas, now those children who have now grown up have a healthy relationship with the Christians. So the Sri Lankan Bishop Conference have sort of recognized this particular ministry of the Oblates, and then they are now promoting this particular ministry to be continued in all the dioceses, so that this feeling antagonism or feeling, one feels that they are threatened, that type of feeling can be overcome as time goes.
Many children must have been scarred by the Civil War, 20 years of war.
That's exactly, yes. And those children, for me, even though I am from the north, I was trained during my formation period. We were together, both the Singhalese and Tamil seminarians. We lived together, and then we know how the people are. The problem is not with the people; it is problem of is political. And these children who are born for last 20 years, they have a very serious negative feeling towards each other. And I think now both in the south and the north, the Oblates have launched a program of peace and reconciliation. And it is a long program. We need to do quite a lot, because the mutual trust that we have lost have to be regained. And most of the children who are born during this war have a tendency to violence, and this is what I think I had to read the signs of the time as the church in need, church who is suffering because we have lost the traditional Christian values of peace, love, and maybe reconciliation, forgiveness. These are very hard values now to live.
Because the children don't believe in peace anymore, they don't believe in reconciliation?
Because the constant, war, the consequence of war is to become more and more hard, and then the vengeance, the anger, and even the children react to their parents in a very violent manner. And then that's why I think a lot of young people are affected.
So does the violation then continue after the Civil War?
Yes, I think that is where I again recognize that we have a lot to do. The church can do a lot, and we have to work out quite a lot on this healing process, and also peace education. We have from our Center for Peace and Reconciliation, we used to conduct program called Peace Education, and also a program called Non-Violent Communication. So it's a kind of a package where it's a kind of a program where the smaller groups are gathered, and then made them realize how much we are violent. Maybe even as priests and religious, we are also contaminated with such environment, and this we know we have been also going through certain amount of psychological difficulties.
And the projects you are doing with your Oblates missionaries, is that the same what the Catholic Church wants to do or is doing in Sri Lanka?
Yes, of course. Well, Church, we are united in terms of handling these issues, but the bishops and the diocesan clergy are more engaged in the traditional pastoral care of the people, more sacramental. We as religious, especially the Oblates, we have a part of our charism is that our founder, he responded to the immediate need. So the emerging needs maybe from the natural calamity or from the civil war, we have supposed to be the pioneers, to be more spontaneous and creative in finding ways and means of reaching out to the poor. And for you to tell, there are a number of widows in our society, number of orphans in our society, and then lots of the well-to-do people who were able to move out of the country and gone into migrated to the European and the Northern American countries have done. So all those who are left behind are more and more poor people, and those who need our help more.
So what is then the biggest challenge for the Catholic Church?
The Catholic Church is faced with a need to be present, first of all. Our presence, during the time of war, we were with them. The oblates are still remembered as golden years, those days, the missionaries from the so-called the European countries, they were very close to the people. And we have to be with the people. That is the first thing. And then also, we have to go beyond the barriers of the traditional way of doing services. What they really need, we have to respond to them. So we have to be very, very sensitive to the people, and still we have a certain amount of respect, and people love us. And so they demand also a certain amount of discipline, certain amount of commitment. And you see now from the Jaffna province, we have nearly 40 scholastics. That is, those who have made their religious vows. That means it's a good number in today's context, that they want to become oblates, they want to become priests. So there is still we have faith in priesthood, and so their parents and their families are still they want the priestly service.
The people want the priestly service.
Yes.
But you yourself are from Sri Lanka. You have now worked for many, many years in your own country.
Yes.
Isn't that very difficult to work as a missionary in your own country?
Yes, we are, in every priest is a missionary, because I work not for my own family, I work for the others. And, I never ask for an obedience, I go where I am sent. Thanks to the great missionaries who have come those days, they become a model for us, the type of commitment they have had, and they have gone through the difficult lifestyle at that time. And so the challenge here today is also certain amount of the secularism, the secular culture that is also creeping in, even in Sri Lanka. They say now, if you visit Colombo, the city, it's a country within a country, and all these modern technologies and modern media, modern facilities are also coming in. But we have also mostly the oblates work in the remote areas. Say, for example, I can give you an example. When we started a computer literacy program for the village people, and children, the young people come 20 miles, 20 kilometers cycling, or by bus. There will be only once or twice or three times a bus service from one village to another village. And the difficulties are there. It is not very easy to be a missionary in our own country. We have more villages and less facilities, and still there are villages not seen electricity or the modern facilities.
From what spirituality do you live as a missionary?
Spirituality is spirituality of Jesus Christ, and it is very encouraging for me as I work for the people. I am being also blessed. That is my conviction. And you
Blessed in which way, you mean?
I work more than my talents and capacities. That is the miracles that I experience. When you want to really work for the poor, for the people, with the correct motivation and lots of support from the others, simply being poured in, I cannot explain that.
What is your biggest talent you can use as a missionary?
Talent is I was maybe if I put it this way, I was first my ministry was I was a preacher. Almost 10 years I was in a preaching band. The preaching is not merely to preach from the pulpit. We go as a team of 2-3 priests and live in a particular parish, visit all the families. When we visit, one by one, every family, it is a time of grace. And people are happy that priest has come to our home and they wait for us. And secondly, we also preach, and we have smaller group masses, cottage masses, where the people have more opportunity to take part. And also we do other services of rendering, give them sacraments, and the sick people are attended to, and also we train the lay people. So these then afterwards I was involved more in formation work, but I still cherish the good memories of being a preacher. It is to reach out as a priest is the biggest talent I think I have received.
Thank you very much, Father Paul, for being with us and sharing with us your love for the Catholic Church in Sri Lanka. And thank you for watching our program Where God Weeps. And if you want to learn more on how you can help the Church in Sri Lanka, please log on to our website posted at the end of our program. We hope to see you again next week. Take care.